There are times when this world drifts so close to the fabric of reality that I can hear something calling me from beyond that veil. Sometimes, when I get too close, I can feel that thing on the other side, tugging at the corners of my mind. I'm worried about Diego. He doesn't seem to be taking things so well. In case you don't know, I work at the shitty gas station at the edge of a small town, and weird things have been happening for as long as I've been here. I've finally started to tell some of my stories, and if you haven't caught up yet, I would like to invite you all to listen to parts 1 and 2. When I returned to work after my post 13 days ago, I was delighted to find a stack of receipt papers sitting neatly on the register counter with notes written in my own shaky handwriting. Now, I don't remember writing these notes, but then again, I don't remember a lot of things. It is possible that I'm working too hard, or maybe the fumes coming from beneath the gas station are playing tricks on me, or perhaps it's just another side effect of my condition. Oh, at any rate, I'm not the one to look a gift horse in the mouth, or any other animal, in any other orifice for that matter. Now, admittedly, my handwriting isn't the best, and at times, the scratches on the receipt paper become nearly illegible, so if anything herein seems unbelievable, it's probably because I copied it wrong. Now, with that in mind, this is my best effort at a transcript. 7 o'clock. It's getting dark earlier these days. 7:30. Farmer Jr. came into the gas station tonight asking about the hand plants. I told him that they weren't there anymore. He left his phone number scribbled down on the back of a coupon for 15% off bulk pig feed from an online retailer. I think he's trying to send me a message. 9 o'clock. I think, maybe, that there's some kids that are playing a prank on me. I found a lawn gnome behind some pork rinds. I didn't think much about it, and I put him in a box behind the counter. But then, I found another matching lawn gnome in the soda case. I added this one to the box as well, and it wasn't until I noticed the third and fourth lawn gnomes that I started to suspect something. I had taken out the garbage and found the lawn gnomes perched atop the branch of a tree next to the dumpster, staring down at me like gargoyles. I used a chair and broom to knock them down, and I put them in the box with the other 3. When I got back to my desk, I found a note on my chair written in red ink. It says simply, "I'm in the walls." I don't know who wrote it, but the paper smells like oranges and plumeria. 10 o'clock. There's a strange scratching noise coming from the tiles above the cash register. I fear Rocco and his brood may have infiltrated the building again. 11 o'clock. Farmer Jr. called the store. He asked about the hand plants. I assured him that they weren't there anymore, and if they ever showed up again, that I would call them. I think he's beginning to suspect that I'm lying. 12 o'clock. Ugh. One of the cultist recruits wandered in from the community in the woods. They hate it when I call them cultists. I know the recruits aren't supposed to interact with the outside world, but from time to time, they will sneak into town, never any further than this gas station, and buy cigarettes. Now, they aren't supposed to try and recruit new members until they graduate to the honorable senior cult status, but this one isn't a very good cultist. I know they aren't supposed to have names, but I'm gonna call this one Marlboro. I'll let you guess why. Marlboro stayed in the store for at least half an hour, trying to convince me to go back to the compound with them. They hate it when I call their home a compound. He tried to appeal to my logical side, but I let him know politely but firmly that I was not interested in logic. I can't remember when he left. 2 o'clock. I found myself digging again. Sometimes on slow nights, I let myself drift. My mind goes somewhere, and when I come to, I wonder, where was I just now? Who was that controlling my body while I was gone? My body did those things I've done so many times before that I guess it's learned how to do them without me. My body restocked the cigarettes. My body rotated the frozen drink machine. My body scraped the mold off the bottom of the ice buckets. And my body emptied the rat traps. And somewhere along the way, my body found a shovel, went out back, and started digging a hole. Well, okay. Actually, I shouldn't say my body started digging a hole. I have been, or rather, my body has been digging this hole on and off for about the last few months. Usually, I come to after a few shovelfuls, but this time, I added another foot deep before I snapped back to reality and asked myself, what the hell am I doing? 3:30. I just noticed a door at the end of the hallway just past the walk-in cooler. How long have I worked here and never noticed that door before? It seems disappointingly ordinary as far as doors goes, except for the fact that it's warm to the touch and it kind of feels like it's vibrating. I tried the handle, but it's locked. When I got back to the register, I noticed a man in a trench coat standing outside beyond the gas pumps, just outside of reach of our lights, dangerously close to the road. Now, I can't tell if he's looking at me or if he's looking past the building at the woods on the other side. I wish he wouldn't stand there like that, all stoic and still, with his arms reaching just down past his knees. And of course, the scratching against the tiles in the ceiling over the counter is getting louder. 3:45. A man came into the store, rolling a large white ice chest behind him. He had sunken blue eyes, wiry hair coming out of his nose and ears, long bony fingers, and paper-thin skin revealing every blue and green vein beneath his translucent dermis. He wore a bowler cap, and he smelt kind of like milk. I had definitely never seen him around before. He asked if we would be interested in partnering up with him. He sold ground meat at discounted prices, but I told him that our store doesn't do too well with the fresh foods category, recommending that he try his hand at making jerky. Before he left, he scooped out a pound or so of raw ground meat from his ice chest and put it on a piece of parchment paper and gave it to me as a sample. Once he had left, I took the meat into the cooler where I found another lawn gnome waiting for me. I put the gnome in the box with the other 7. At 4 o'clock, Diego just told me something very strange about Kiefer. 4:30. There was a kid named Spencer Middleton who went to the same high school as me and Kiefer. Spencer was just a year ahead of me, but looked much older and acted much younger. I live in a small town, and small towns get bored. For entertainment, some turn to gossip, and some turn to more sinister pastimes. The latter often fueled the former. There were rumors around town that Spencer liked to torture and kill animals. Rumors that Spencer's parents and siblings always had to lock their bedroom doors when they went to sleep at night. The rumors didn't slow down any after the fire at Spencer's house, where Spencer was the only one who escaped unscathed. I once saw Spencer gleefully stomp on a lizard and throw his head back and laugh. Some short time after his house caught fire, for the second time, Spencer left town. The story went that he had gone off, joined the army. I didn't really know what to think about that, so I simply don't think about that. I would have been perfectly happy to never think about that ever again, but after all these years I'm forced to, because Spencer Middleton just came into the store and ordered a cup of coffee. He's sitting in one of the booths talking to Kiefer. Oh, and Marlboro's back. He asked if I could spare him some time to talk about his fake religion. I hate it when I call it a fake religion. I told him that he had to leave. He seemed upset. 4:45. Spencer and Kiefer sat around for a while and didn't buy anything but 2 cups of coffee. When they finally left, I let Diego know. He had been hiding under a blanket in the walk-in cooler, although I can't really understand why. Diego explained to me exactly what had happened. He had finished his shift a couple of nights ago, and just as he left the gas station, he saw Kiefer's SUV pulled over in a ditch at the bottom of the hill. Diego, being the good guy that he is, decided to check and see if Kiefer needed any help. He says that when he pulled up and got out of the car, he could hear what sounded like a loud crunching noise coming from just beyond the tree line. Diego went to investigate, and that's when he saw something. I asked what Diego said he saw, and he just started speaking Spanish in a fast, panicked sort of way. Now, I don't speak Spanish, but I nodded along empathetically. The only word that I could pick up was strega, which is the name of a liquor that we carry. Whatever it was that Diego did see, though, it made him race back to his car as fast as he could and back out quickly without even looking, and that's when he ran over Kiefer. Now, Diego's a good guy, but here he was in a bad situation. He stopped long enough to get out, check on Kiefer, and confirm that he was definitely dead. There was nothing that he could do that would change that fact. It was an accident. Diego was on parole, and there was that thing in the woods, and Diego had to make a decision. So, he heaved the body into the trunk of his car, and he drove off. Diego took me to his car and showed me the body. I can't confirm 100% that it was Kiefer in the trunk of his car. Not just because of his unmistakable face, but also because his phone and wallet were in his pockets. 5 o'clock. I finally got tired of the scratching and pulled out our ladder out of storage just to see what those raccoons were doing in the ceiling. When I pushed back the tile, the only thing up there was another gnome. That makes 12 so far. 6 o'clock. The man in the trench coat is still outside. The cultist came back in, demanding an audience with me, insisting that if I would just listen to him, I would see that his reasoning is superb and flawless, and that I would be a fool not to join him in the perfection of logic and nirvana that is his belief structure. I agreed to listen to his pitch if he would agree to ask the man outside in the trench coat to leave. Our hasty verbal contract in place, I steeled myself to listen. And honestly, well, he did make a few good points. But I suppose that's to be expected from a viral thought experiment strong enough to convince perfectly normal people to abandon their real lives and go live in a commune in the woods past this shitty gas station at the edge of town. They call themselves mathematists. They believe that humankind exists to fulfill two moral imperatives: to decrease suffering and increase happiness. A successful life increases happiness more than suffering. A decent life decreases suffering more than happiness. How good a person is can be determined by the spread between the happiness increased and the suffering decreased. Obviously, if the individual has a negative spread, that is, if they've increased happiness less than they've increased suffering, or that they've decreased suffering less than they've decreased happiness, well, then that means, very simply, that the individual is bad. And therefore, if an individual causes a tremendous amount of happiness and suffering, one can simply determine which was higher and use this perfect rubric to determine whether that individual was good or bad. Simple, right? The mathematists believe that the world has been going on about good and bad in the wrong way. For eons, we've been attempting to increase happiness while decreasing suffering, as happiness is a fluid concept, and the more happiness that you create, the harder it is to sustain, as happiness has a clear set of diminishing returns. A suffering, however, is constant. Suffering results from happiness coming to an end. A suffering is pure and eternal. For mathematists to be supremely good, they must simply end all suffering. And that's why mathematists are working on a bomb to destroy the entire planet. By ending all life on Earth, they end an infinity amount of suffering into the future. With every life that they avert, an entire lineage of people that would be born into a life of suffering will no longer be. Every death is a preemptive mercy killing. Every happy moment that will no longer occur pales in the face of all the sad moments that are likewise prevented. And so, as Marlborough explained, their murder cult believes that killing is a kindness. I told him that his ideas were stupid, and that he was stupid, and that now he had to go tell the man in the trench coat to go away. 6:30. The phone rang. This is strange for two reasons. First, because it was not the landline. It was the cell phone, even though we don't get cell phone service way out here. And second, because, well, it was the cell phone, the one that I took off of Kiefer's body. I'll admit, I was stuck in a bit of a moral quandary after Diego confided in me. On the one hand, Diego had killed someone. On the other, it was an accident, and Diego's parole officer may not see it that way. I thought that I would have a bit more time to figure this out, but when the phone started ringing, I knew I had to make a decision. I answered it. I didn't speak first. The voice on the other line was one that I recognized.
You have something that belongs to my boss.
It was Spencer Middleton. His cell phone? And his wallet, I answered.
What? No, we don't care about that shit. We can buy more phones. We can get more wallets. You know what we want.
He was right. I did. It was an accident, I explained.
We know. We want to make a deal. You give it back, and we pretend like this whole thing didn't happen.
Can we do that?
Absolutely.
7:30. Diego came in for his shift at 7, and I explained the deal to him. He wasn't thrilled, but as I laid it out very clearly, he didn't really have a choice. He parked Diego's Camry behind the gas station, near the wild growth of hand plants, and made a point to stand far enough away to not get our ankles grabbed. Kiefer's SUV drove up a few minutes later. Spencer was driving it. He and Kiefer got out, without a word, sized us up, and opened up the back of their vehicle. Diego popped the trunk. Kiefer and I stared at each other. keeping eye contact the whole time while Diego and Spencer transferred the body from one vehicle to the other. Spencer had a tarp and a blanket ready to wrap everything up, and when it was finally over, Kiefer put a hand on my shoulder and whispered in my ear, "You done good." And then they left. Diego started crying as I went back inside the store. It was almost daytime, and that's when the new part-timer was supposed to take over. 8 o'clock. The new part-timer is late, and I'm overdue for a lunch break. I made the best of my extra time here by putting price stickers on the lawn gnomes, or ringing them up as miscellaneous groceries for $9.99 each, and I've already sold a couple. I'm a really good employee. 8:30. I went to the bathroom and I saw a man standing there with his pants at his ankles. He wore checkered boxers and a cowboy hat. He smiled when he saw me and simply said something in a sing-song voice. "Come on, man. Come on with it." I took the opportunity to ask him something that has been bothering me lately. "Do you know if everything's gonna be okay?" The bathroom cowboy took a second to think. Then, he pulled up his pants, walked past me, spurs clinking against the bathroom tile, and then he stopped for a second when he was right next to me and said plainly, "I appreciate it." And then, he left. I honestly have no idea what that means. These are the entirety of the receipt paper notes, but I did make a point to continue keeping a journal. I think that this will be a healthy way of chronicling the weird events at the gas station, and maybe this will even help with my condition. I don't know. The next time something strange happens, maybe I'll come back and write more. But until then, I guess this is to be continued. Last minute edit here, sorry. Upon further inspection, I realized that some of the scribbles on the receipt paper may have been transcribed incorrectly. I also made some adjustments to the spelling and fixed some typos. While I was at it, I added another typo just for the observant reader. Lastly, upon the advice of some of my listeners, I removed the part where I listed Farmer Jr.'s social security number and his address. Also, special thanks to the listeners that pointed out that strega isn't even a Spanish word. I actually asked Diego about that when he came back in for his 4th shift today, but Diego simply looked at me blankly and told me that he doesn't even speak Spanish. Go figures.